Hello, my name is William Grant, and this is my Unit 2 speech about the British colonies. The British have been known for its great impacts over the world as we know it. These impacts are both very positive and extremely negative. From various actions such as freeing nations from the grasp of horrible dictators to creating giant superpowers of the world today. But they also do have its horrible underbelly of the British history. To start on the positive side of history, the British were known for their great freedom fighting. Specifically, a good example would be when Germany started World War II in 1940. The British were one of the first to respond as the German forces invaded Poland, and along with their allied forces, including the French, American, and USSR armies, fighting against the Nazi regimes and the rest of the Axis forces. On one of the greatest battles of World War II, D-Day, the British were extremely important in the invasion. With nearly 150,000 men, they attacked the Gold and Sword beaches, taking them. This information was from the National Army Museum in London. It's a website regarding the D-Day article with no author listed. It was the D-Day battle invasion that would set up the later freedom of Poland, Italy, and France, and later Germany itself. Starting in as another great moment of freedom for the British were when Thomas Clarkson, William Wilberforce, and Granville Sharp began the British Anti-Slavery Society in London, starting in 1787. It was their help that they were eventually able to convince the British Parliament to legalize slavery, beginning in 1807 with the legalization of slave trade, and eventually in 1833 with the emancipation of slavery altogether. This information was from the Abolition and Emancipation section of Amplid from the Adam Matthews Publication Society, which was founded in November 5th, 1990. But for the great freedoms to happen, the horrors had to happen beforehand. Specifically, the abusement of Africa. With Africa, the UK wanted its less developed people for their cheap work, as well as their lands for great sources of metals and gems. The next information is provided by the South African History Online website article about the Berlin Conference, which was posted April 22nd, 2015. In 1884, 14 different European countries all met in order to convey on how they would split up all of Africa. It was these 14 countries that had no prior knowledge to the African societies, that had split up and taken control of its people, causing many rebellions, wars, and even mass murders to occur. It was this conference that will forever be known as the Berlin Conference that severely weakened Africa till now. It is also well known of how the British had used slaves for hundreds of years. In its colonies, the British, from 1562 to 1833, slaves were used for subsistence farming and commercial farming for cash crops such as cotton and tobacco. This was provided by Bernard A. Wiesberger and Richard A. Beeman from Canada. Even though the actions of slaves owners were horrible, it was their work that moved forward the British and its colonies to the superpowers that they are today. For now, the current events. The British war efforts in colonial days are mostly over, and they have ensured that the free world has remained stable by its actions in World War II, but the colonizations of Africa and less developed nations have caused increased poverty in those nations, with the average person in Africa only making $271 a year, according to the Ending Africa's Poverty Trap from Brooks Papers on Economic Activity, post made 2004. In conclusions, rather if your grandfather's parents fought with the British, World War II, or if your ancestors were enslaved by the British, we were all impacted by them.